Far above Earth, hidden among the stars, a massive ship floated in silence. Inside this ship, strange beings sat around a glowing table. They looked nothing like humans. Some had blue skin with 4 arms. Others had scales that changed colors. A few looked like tall plants that could walk and talk. These beings called themselves the Galactic Evaluation Council. They had one important job. They watched planets where smart life lived. They decided which species could join their big space community. It was not an easy job. The leader of the council was named Zex-9. He had gray skin and 3 eyes that blinked one at a time. He looked at the floating screen that showed Earth. The blue and green planets spun slowly below them. "We have been watching these humans for 50 Earth years," Zex-9 said to the others. His voice sounded like metal scraping metal. "What do we know about them?" A tall being with 6 legs stepped forward. Her name was Kiratel. She carried a device that glowed with information. The humans fight each other often. They have many wars. They make weapons that could destroy their whole planet. They pollute their air and water. Another council member spoke up. This one looked like a giant insect with rainbow wings. They cut down their forests. They make some animals disappear forever. They seem to care only about themselves. Zex-9 nodded slowly. All 3 of his eyes focused on the screen. This matches what we see with most species. They fight, they take, they destroy. Some learn to be better. Others do not make it. The council had seen this story many times before. Young species always went through this phase. They discovered fire, then weapons, then space travel. Most destroyed themselves before they learned wisdom. The lucky ones survived long enough to join the galactic community. But something feels different about these humans, said another council member. This one had tentacles instead of arms and spoke through color changes on her skin. Our deep scans show strange behavior patterns. Kiratel touched her device. New images appeared on the screen. They showed humans doing unusual things. A man jumping into a frozen river to save a dog. A woman giving her lunch to a homeless person. Children sharing toys with kids they just met. We see this behavior in almost all humans, Kiratel explained. They help others even when it costs them something. Even when they get nothing back. Even when the other person is a complete stranger. The insect being buzzed his wings with confusion. This makes no sense. Why would they risk their safety for genetic non-relatives? There is no logical benefit. Zex-9 leaned forward. In all his years on the council, he had never seen anything like this. Most species only helped family members or trading partners. Help always came with a price or an expectation. Maybe these are just rare cases, suggested the tentacle being. Every species has a few strange individuals. That is what we thought too, Kiratel replied. So we decided to run a deeper study. We picked random humans from different places. We watched them closely. We want to see what they do when no one is looking. When they think no one will know, the screen changed again. Now it showed a tired woman walking upstairs in a building. She had dark hair pulled back and wore green clothes that hospital workers used. Her name appeared on the screen, Dr. Elena Vasquez. This human is a trauma surgeon, Kiratel explained. She fixes people who are badly hurt. Today, she worked for 16 hours straight. She saved 4 lives. She got very little sleep in the past 3 days. The council watched Elena unlock her apartment door. She moved like someone who could barely stay awake. She dropped her bag by the door and fell onto her couch without even taking off her shoes. According to our data, she has a probability of helping strangers that is 340% higher than the galactic average, Kiratel continued. But she is not special among her species. This behavior appears in 73% of all humans we study. The rainbow-winged being shook his head. This cannot be right. Your scanning equipment must be broken. We checked it many times, Kiratel said. We even got new equipment from the tech builders of Zephyr Prime. The results stay the same. Zex9 watched Elena on the screen. The human woman had closed her eyes. She breathed slowly and steadily. After working so hard to save others, she now rested. What makes you think we will see this helping behavior? Zex9 asked. She is asleep. She is safe in her home. There is no emergency. Kiratel smiled, which was hard to see since her face looked like a cat mixed with a lizard. The statistical models show a 73% chance that something will happen tonight. Humans seem to attract situations where they must choose between safety and helping others. The council settled in to watch. They had seen this pattern on other worlds. Usually, species chose safety. They locked their doors, ignored problems that were not theirs, and minded their own business. This was normal. This was smart. This was how species survived. But their data about humans suggested something different might happen. On the screen, Elena slept deeply on her couch. The clock in her apartment showed 2:47 a.m. The building around her was quiet. Other humans slept in their own apartments. The night seemed peaceful. Maybe tonight will be different, the insect being said. Maybe she will act like a normal species member. Zex9 did not answer. His 3 eyes stayed fixed on the screen. In his long life, he had learned to trust data over hope. The numbers said something unusual would happen. The numbers were rarely wrong. Time moved slowly. The clock changed to 2:55 a.m., then 3:05 a.m. Elena continued sleeping. The building stayed quiet. Then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., everything changed. The sound came first. Loud knocking. Desperate banging. Someone hitting Elena's door over and over again. The noise echoed through the building like thunder. Elena's eyes snapped open. She sat up quickly, confusion clear on her face. The knocking continued. It did not stop. It got louder. The council leaned forward in their seats. This was it. This was the moment their data had predicted. Now they would see what humans really did when tested. Now they would learn if their species deserved a place among the stars. Elena jumped to her feet. Her heart pounded as the desperate knocking continued. She had been a doctor long enough to know the sound of real panic. This was not someone playing a joke or making a mistake. She looked through the small window in her door. Outside stood a young woman she had never seen before. The woman had tears running down her face. She wore a bright yellow shirt covered in dark stains. Her hands shook as she pounded on the door. "Please," the woman cried out. "I know you are a doctor. I saw your name on the mailbox. Please help me." Elena's mind raced. She lived in a big apartment building with 48 units. She knew some of her neighbors by sight, but not this woman. How did this stranger know she was a doctor? The woman kept talking through the door. Her words came fast and broken. "My son, there was an accident. He is hurt so bad. I don't know what to do." Up in the spaceship, the Galactic Council watched with great interest. This was exactly the kind of test they needed to see. A tired human. A stranger asking for help. No legal protection. No witnesses. No reward offered. Most species would call their emergency services and stay behind the locked door, Kiratel observed. It is the safest choice. The logical choice. Zex9 nodded. If this human follows normal species behavior, she will offer to call for help, but will not personally get involved. Self-preservation is the strongest instinct in the galaxy. On the screen, Elena stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds. The council members counted each second. They had seen this pause before. It was the moment when a being decided between safety and risk. Elena unlocked her door. She opened it wide. and stepped into the hallway. The stranger was smaller than Elena, maybe 25 years old. Her dark hair was messy, and her eyes were red from crying. "What happened?" Elena asked. Her voice was calm but firm. "Tell me everything." The young woman took a shaky breath. "My name is Maria Santos. I live in apartment 2C. My little boy Carlos was playing outside our building. A man in a car. He was drinking. He hit Carlos and drove away." Elena felt her stomach drop. She had seen too many cases like this in the hospital. Hit-and-run accidents with children often ended badly. "Where's Carlos now?" Elena asked. "In my apartment. I carried him upstairs. I called 911, but they said it will take 45 minutes for the ambulance to get here. The traffic is so bad because of construction." Maria grabbed Elena's arm. "It keeps going in and out of consciousness. There is so much blood. I think he is dying." The alien council watched Elena's face carefully. They had special sensors that could read human emotions and thoughts. Right now, Elena was running through dozens of calculations in her mind. Medical possibilities, legal risks, personal safety concerns. She's considering all the logical problems, the tentacled council member noted. Treating someone outside a hospital is dangerous. She could be sued if something goes wrong. She has no equipment, no backup, no legal protection. And she just worked 16 hours, added the insect being. She is exhausted. Her judgment might be impaired. The smart thing is to wait for trained emergency workers. But Elena was already moving. "Show me," she said to Maria. They ran down the hallway together. Maria's apartment was 2 floors down. Elena could smell blood even before they reached the door. When Maria opened it, Elena saw a sight that made her heart skip. A small boy lay on a couch. He looked about 4 years old. His clothes were torn and bloody. His breathing was shallow and fast. His skin was too pale. Elena knelt beside him immediately. Her hands moved quickly, but gently. She checked his pulse, looked at his eyes, felt for broken bones. Her medical training took over completely. "Carlos," she said softly. "Can you hear me? I am Dr. Elena. I am going to help you." The boy's eyes opened slightly. "Mama?" he whispered. "I am here, baby," Maria said, taking his small hand. Elena's examination revealed serious internal bleeding, possibly a damaged spleen or liver. Carlos needed surgery immediately, but they were stuck in a small apartment with no medical equipment. "We need to get him to a hospital right now," Elena said. "But the ambulance?" 45 minutes, Maria finished. "You said he might not have that long, didn't you? I can see it in your eyes." Elena looked at the little boy. In the hospital, she had every tool she needed. X-ray machines, surgical equipment, a whole team of nurses and doctors. Here, she had nothing except her knowledge and her hands. The smart choice was clear. Wait for the ambulance. Hope Carlos lasted long enough. If he died, it would not be Elena's fault. She had done everything reasonable and safe, but Elena had not become a doctor to make safe choices. "Maria, I need you to listen carefully," Elena said. "I think Carlos has internal bleeding. If I do nothing, he will probably die before the ambulance arrives. I can try to help him here, but it will be dangerous. I do not have the right tools. I could make things worse." Maria's eyes filled with new tears. "But you could save him." "Maybe," Elena said honestly. "I have done emergency surgery before, but never like this. Never outside a hospital." The alien council watched this conversation with growing amazement. Elena was explaining all the risks to Maria. She was being completely honest about the dangers. Most species would use this as an excuse to avoid responsibility. Instead, Elena was giving Maria the choice. "Please," Maria whispered. Try to save my son. I will take full responsibility. I will not blame you if things go wrong. Elena looked at Carlos again. The boy's breathing was getting worse. His pulse was getting weaker. In her professional opinion, he had maybe 20 minutes before internal bleeding killed him. She made her decision. I'm going to need help, Elena said. Do you have any neighbors you trust? People who can follow instructions and stay calm. Maria nodded quickly. Mrs. Chun next door. She used to be a teacher. And Marco upstairs, he fixes cars. They are good people. Get them. Right now. Tell them we need all the clean towels they can find. And any first aid supplies. Hurry. As Maria ran to get help, Elena looked around the small apartment. She would have to perform emergency surgery using whatever she could find. Kitchen knives instead of scalpels. Towels instead of surgical claws. A cell phone flashlight instead of proper lighting. It was impossible. It was dangerous. It was probably illegal. Elena rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Maria returned within 3 minutes. Behind her came 2 other people. An older Asian woman with kind eyes carried an armload of clean towels. A tall man with strong hands brought a toolbox and a bright work light. This is Mrs. Chun, Maria said quickly. And this is Marco. Elena looked up from Carlos, who was getting weaker by the minute. I need you both to understand something. I am about to try emergency surgery on this kitchen table. It will be messy and scary. If anyone feels sick or cannot handle it, please leave now. Mrs. Chun stepped forward. I taught elementary school for 37 years. I have seen children throw up, bleed, and worse. I will not leave. Marco plugged in his work light and pointed it toward the table. I have 3 kids of my own. Tell me what you need. Elena felt a strange moment of gratitude. These people did not know her. They did not know Carlos. But they were ready to help anyway. In the spaceship above, the alien council could hardly believe what they were seeing. This behavior makes no sense, the insect being buzzed. These humans are risking legal trouble, emotional trauma, and personal safety for a genetic stranger. Where is the benefit to them? Kiratel studied her readings. According to our sensors, the benefit is 0. In fact, all 3 helpers are experiencing high stress levels. Their bodies are releasing chemicals associated with fear and anxiety. Yet they stay. Zex9 watched with all 3 eyes. Continue monitoring. This may be the key to understanding human psychology. Down in the apartment, Elena was setting up for surgery. She had Maria boil water on the stove to sterilize kitchen knives. Mrs. Chun cleaned the kitchen table with alcohol. Marco adjusted his light to give the best view possible. I have some medical knowledge from first aid classes, Mrs. Chun said. Can I assist? Elena nodded. I will need someone to hand me tools and watch Carlos's vital signs. She showed Mrs. Chun how to check the boy's pulse and breathing. Other neighbors began arriving. Word was spreading through the building. A young woman from the first floor brought her laptop. I am a nursing student, she said. I can look up any procedures you need. An elderly man appeared with a bottle of vodka. For sterilizing, he explained. I was a field medic in the Army 40 years ago. Why was a field medic in the Army 40 years ago? I know how to improvise. Elena was amazed. These people were organizing themselves without being asked. They were creating a surgical team from nothing. She had Carlos move to the kitchen table. The work light gave them decent visibility. Mrs. Chun stood beside her as a nurse. Marco held backup flashlights. The nursing student had medical websites ready on her laptop. The old veteran prepared sterilized tools. Listen carefully, Elena said to everyone. I am going to make an incision to find the source of internal bleeding. Carlos will be conscious for some of it. I need someone to talk to him and keep him calm. I will do it, said a voice from the doorway. A teenage boy had arrived. I am Carlos's friend from down the hall. He likes stories about superheroes. Elena took a deep breath. In a real hospital, she would have anesthesia, monitors, a full surgical team, and backup plans. Here, she had kitchen knives, towels, and neighbors who cared about a little boy. She made the first cut. Carlos cried out in pain. Maria held his hand tightly. The teenager immediately started talking in a gentle voice. Hey, Carlos, remember that story about Captain Lightning? The one where he has to save the city from the giant robot? Well, right now, Dr. Elena is like Captain Lightning. She has special powers to fix people. Elena worked quickly, but carefully. She found the source of bleeding, a torn blood vessel near the spleen. It was worse than she had hoped, but not as bad as she had feared. Mrs. Chun, I need you to put pressure right here, Elena instructed. Keep your hands steady. Mrs. Chun followed the instruction perfectly. Her teaching experience had given her steady nerves and the ability to follow directions precisely. Marco, can you adjust the light 2 inches to the left? Elena asked. Marco moved the light smoothly. Like this? Perfect. Elena continued working. Blood was everywhere, but she could see what she needed to see. The nursing student called out Carlos's vital signs every few minutes. Heart rate holding steady. Breathing is shallow but regular. The old veteran had more sterilized tools ready whenever Elena needed them. He anticipated what she would need next, showing skills he had learned decades ago. For 2 hours, this strange surgical team worked together. None of them had planned to spend their nights saving a child's life. None of them had expected to perform emergency surgery in a kitchen. But every single person stayed focused on their job. The Alien Council watched in growing amazement. They ran scan after scan, trying to understand what they were seeing. The statistical probability of this level of cooperation between genetic strangers is effectively 0, reported the tentacled being. Our computers cannot even calculate proper odds. Most species require years of training to work together this smoothly, added the rainbow-winged alien. These humans have never worked as a team before tonight. Kira Tell studied her readings more carefully. I am detecting something unusual in their brain chemistry. All of them are releasing large amounts of chemicals associated with bonding and trust. But they have no family relationship. It is as if they are treating this child as their own offspring, Zex9 observed. But that makes no biological sense. On the screen, Elena was making progress. She had stopped the major bleeding and was checking for other damage. Carlos was stable but still weak. How was he doing? Maria asked. She had been holding her son's hand for the entire surgery. Better, Elena said honestly. I think we got the bleeding stopped in time. But he needs real medical care. Professional surgery. Hospital monitoring. As if summoned by her words, they heard sirens in the distance. The ambulance was finally arriving. Mrs. Chun smiled. You did it, doctor. You saved him. Elena looked around at all the people who had helped. A retired teacher, a mechanic, a nursing student, a war veteran, a teenager. They had given up their sleep, their comfort, and their safety to save one little boy. We did it, Elena corrected. All of us together. The paramedics arrived and took over Carlos's care. They were impressed by the field surgery and the stability of the patient. Whoever did this work saved his life, the lead paramedic told Maria. He would not have made it another 10 minutes. As the ambulance left with Carlos and Maria, the neighbors began cleaning up. They worked together to sanitize the kitchen and put everything back in order. No one complained about the late hour or the mess. Thank you, Elena said to each person as they prepared to leave. Thank you for knowing what to do, Mrs. Chun replied. We just helped. Marco packed up his tools. Let us know how the boy does, okay? The teenage friend looked tired but happy. Carlos is going to love this story when he is better. He was saved by real-life superheroes. One by one, the neighbors returned to their apartments. Elena was left alone in Maria's kitchen. She sat down heavily in a chair. Her hands were still shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. She had just performed emergency surgery with kitchen utensils and help from complete strangers. It should have been a disaster. Instead, it had worked perfectly. Above her, the alien council sat in stunned silence. They had witnessed something that challenged everything they knew about intelligent species. High above Earth, the Galactic Evaluation Council sat in complete silence. For the first time in over 1,000 years of evaluating species, they had no words to explain what they had just witnessed. Zex-9 stared at the screen with all three eyes. The data readings continued to flash numbers and graphs. But the numbers made no sense according to everything they knew about intelligent life. Run the analysis again, he finally said. Kiratel touched her device. The same results appeared. Genetic relationship between all participants. 0. Pre-existing social bonds. Minimal. Legal obligation to help. None. Financial incentive. 0. Social pressure. None. The insect being fluttered his rainbow wings nervously. Then why did they do it? What did they gain? According to our scans, they gained nothing, Kiratel replied. In fact, they all lost something. Sleep, comfort, safety, peace of mind. Several of them will have stress reactions for days. The doctor risks legal problems if anything had gone wrong. The tentacle council member changed colors rapidly, showing deep confusion. This contradicts the fundamental laws of species survival behavior. Intelligent beings do not risk themselves for genetic strangers without compensation. Zex-9 had served on the council for 60 years. He had evaluated 47 different species. Some had been warlike. Some had been peaceful. Some had been greedy. Some had been generous. But all of them had followed the same basic rule. Help your family first, help your allies second, ignore everyone else. Bring up the historical data, Zex-9 commanded. Show me how other species handle similar situations. The screen filled with examples from across the galaxy. When the Vorthan discovered wounded strangers, they called authorities and waited safely at a distance. When the Kelpians encountered emergencies, they helped only after ensuring no personal risk. When the Tellarites faced injured children, they provided assistance only if legal contracts protected them from liability. This is normal behavior, explained Kiratel. Calculated help with minimal risk. Every species prioritizes self-preservation. Except humans, added the rainbow-winged being. Show me the brain chemistry data again, Zex-9 requested. New charts appeared. The human participants had been releasing massive amounts of oxytocin, dopamine, and other bonding chemicals. But these chemicals were normally triggered only by family, relationships, or romantic partnerships. It is as if their brains cannot tell the difference between helping their own children and helping complete strangers. Kiratel observed. The elderly veteran council member who rarely spoke finally stood up. His species looked like walking trees with silver bark. In my 400 years of life, I have seen many worlds. I have studied countless civilizations. This behavior is impossible according to evolutionary science. All eyes turned to him. Tree beings were known for their wisdom and long perspective. Species survive by protecting their own genetic line, he continued. Those who waste resources on strangers die out. Those who focus on family and allies survive to reproduce. It is the most basic law of evolution. Then how do humans exist? Asked Zex-9. How did they survive long enough to develop this behavior? Maybe we are misunderstanding something, suggested the tentacle being. Maybe they do get some benefit we cannot measure. Kiratel ran more scans. I have checked for every possible benefit. Social status improvement. None. Future favors expected. None. Religious or cultural obligations. None. Hidden family connections. None. The only measurable result is personal cost and risk. The council fell silent again. They had sophisticated equipment that could analyze the smallest details of biological and social behavior. Everything pointed to the same impossible conclusion. Humans regularly risk themselves to help genetic strangers with no expectation of reward. Perhaps this was a rare event, suggested the insect being. Maybe we witnessed a few strange humans in their species. That is what I hope too, Zex9 replied. But our extended observations show this pattern in 73% of all humans tested. It is not rare. It is normal for them. He gestured to the screen. Show them the other examples. The display changed to show dozens of similar incidents. Humans jumping into dangerous water to save drowning strangers. Humans giving blood to people they would never meet. Humans donating organs to children in other countries. Humans running into burning buildings to rescue neighbors they barely knew. Every single case shows the same pattern, Kiratel explained. High personal risk, no genetic relationship, no expectation of reward. According to evolutionary science, these humans should have died out millions of years ago. The tree being shook his silver branches. Unless what? Asked the Zex9. Unless we are seeing a new form of evolution. Something that has never happened before in the galaxy. The council leaned forward. This was a revolutionary idea. Explain, Zex9 commanded. The tree being's bark shimmered as he thought. Most species evolved to protect their genetic family. Parents die for children. Siblings help siblings. This ensures that shared genes survive into the next generation. He paused, considering his words carefully. But what if a species evolved beyond genetic loyalty? What if they began treating all members of their species as family? Or even treating other species as family? The rainbow-winged being buzzed loudly. That is impossible. It would require completely rewriting millions of years of evolutionary programming. And yet, the tree being replied, we just watched it happen. Kiratel studied her readings again. The brain chemistry supports this theory. Humans release family-bonding chemicals when helping any human, sometimes even when helping animals or artificial intelligences. Zex9 felt something he had never experienced in his long career. Complete uncertainty about how to proceed. Every previous species had fit into clear categories. Warriors, traders, builders, scholars. Each had predictable behavior patterns based on their evolutionary history. Humans broke all the patterns. What are the implications? Asked the tentacle being. The tree being was quiet for a long moment. If humans treat all suffering beings as family, then they are not really a separate species anymore. They are something new. Something that has never existed before. What should we call such a species? Asked the Zex9. I do not know, the tree being admitted. We may need to create an entirely new classification. The screen showed Elena walking slowly up the stairs to her apartment. She looked exhausted but peaceful. In a few hours, she would return to the hospital and continue saving lives. Tonight's emergency surgery was already becoming just another memory for her. But for the Galactic Council, tonight would change everything. We need to observe more, Zex9 decided. If humans truly represent a new form of evolution, we must understand it completely before making any decisions about their species. What if we are wrong? Asked the insect being. What if tonight was just a lucky exception? ZEX9 looked at the data one more time. The numbers were clear. The brain chemistry was consistent. The behavior patterns were repeatable. Then we will learn something else interesting, he replied. But I do not think we are wrong. The council continued watching as Elena finally reached her apartment. She looked back down the hallway once, toward the apartment where Carlos had almost died. Then she went inside and closed her door. In a few days, she would receive a thank you card from Maria and Carlos. She would put it on her refrigerator next to similar cards from other patients she had saved. She would never think of herself as special or heroic. To Elena, helping others was simply what humans did. But to the Galactic Council, Elena and her neighbors had just demonstrated something that might change the entire galaxy forever. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Evaluation Council gathered for their final meeting about humanity. Representatives from all 12 major galactic civilizations attended. This was the most important species evaluation in over 2,000 years. Zex-9 stood before the assembly. Behind him, massive screens showed data from their extended human observations. Charts, graphs, and video recordings filled the air with proof of what they had discovered. Fellow council members, Zex-9 began, we have completed our evaluation of the species called humans. What we found challenges everything we know about intelligent life. Murmurs arose from the assembly. The Gatherian delegate, a being made of living crystal, chimed with skepticism. You called this emergency session for one primitive species? They have barely left their home planet. That is exactly why this meeting is so important, Zex-9 replied. Please observe the evidence. The screens showed Elena's story first. Then dozens of similar incidents from around Earth. Humans saving strangers from fires. Humans donating blood to people they would never meet. Humans sacrificing their time and money to help those in need. These incidents occur millions of times every Earth Day, Kiratel reported. We have documented over 10 million cases of humans helping genetic strangers with no expectation of reward. The Draconian representative, a massive reptilian being, hissed with displeasure. This proves they are weak. A strong species dominates others. It does not serve them. That is what we thought initially, Zex-9 admitted. But continued observation revealed something else. The screen changed to show human military forces. But instead of conquest, it showed humans rescuing civilians from natural disasters. Human soldiers sharing their rations with hungry children. Human peacekeepers protecting refugees from multiple species. Even their warriors prioritize protecting others over gaining territory, Kiratel explained. Their strongest military forces are often used for humanitarian missions. The crystal being chimed again. This behavior is inefficient. They waste resources on beings who cannot help them. But here is the remarkable result, Zex-9 continued. The screen showed Earth's technological progress over the past century. Medical advances, space exploration, artistic achievements. Despite spending enormous resources helping others, humans advance faster than any species we have observed. The assembly grew quieter. This was not what they expected to hear. The tree being who had spoken before rose slowly. I have reviewed all historical data. No species has ever achieved this level of rapid advancement while simultaneously displaying this level of altruistic behavior. What is your hypothesis? Asked the Draconian. Humans have evolved a form of collective intelligence, the tree being explained. When they help each other freely, they share knowledge, skills, and resources at an unprecedented rate. Their willingness to sacrifice for strangers creates a species-wide network of cooperation. The screen showed more examples. Human scientists sharing research freely instead of hiding discoveries. Human artists creating works that inspired others across the globe. Human teachers spending their own money to help students they would only know for a few months. Most species hoard their advantages, Kiratel noted. Families keep secrets from other families. Nations hide technology from rival nations. but humans actively spread their knowledge to anyone who can benefit. This sounds like weakness disguised as virtue, the Draconian argued. What happens when they encounter truly aggressive species? They will be conquered easily. Zex9 gestured to another screen. It showed human history, wars, conflicts, and survival against terrible odds. Humans can be fierce when necessary, but they seem to prefer building to destroying. They choose cooperation over domination whenever possible. The crystal being dimmed thoughtfully. What is your recommendation for their galactic status? ZEX9 looked around the assembly. This was the moment that would determine humanity's future. We recommend immediate admission to the galactic community, he announced. But not under any existing classification. The assembly erupted in surprised voices and sounds. No species had ever been admitted without fitting into established categories. Explain this unprecedented recommendation, demanded the Draconian. Humans represent something we have never encountered. Zex9 said firmly. They are not warriors seeking conquest. They are not traders seeking profit. They are not scholars seeking knowledge. They are something new. He gestured to the screens again. Now they showed Elena and her neighbors working together to save Carlos. The image had become symbolic of everything they had learned about humanity. We propose classifying humans as the galaxy's first caretaker species, ZEX9 announced. The assembly fell completely silent. A caretaker species, he continued, is one that instinctively protects and helps other forms of life. They do not seek to rule or exploit. They seek to heal, to build, and to preserve. The tree being nodded his silver branches. The galaxy has known warrior species, trader species, and scholar species, but never a species dedicated to caring for others. What would be their role in the galactic community? As the crystal being Kiratel stepped forward, humans could serve as neutral mediators in conflicts. They could provide medical aid to species without adequate healthcare. They could help preserve endangered cultures and species. Their natural empathy makes them ideal for diplomatic and humanitarian roles. The Draconian was still skeptical. What if we are wrong? What if this behavior is temporary? We have observed them for decades, Zex9 replied. This behavior appears in their children, their elderly, their leaders, and their common citizens. It transcends culture, geography, and social status. It appears to be fundamental to their species. The assembly debated for hours. Some members worried about setting precedents. Others questioned whether humans were truly ready for galactic contact. A few argued that any species showing such unusual behavior should be studied longer. Finally, the vote was called, the crystal being voted for admission. Their medical knowledge alone could benefit hundreds of worlds. The tree being voted for admission. Evolution has produced something new. We should welcome it. The Draconian hesitated, then voted for admission. If they can maintain peace as effectively as they created, they might teach us all something valuable. One by one, each delegation voted. When the final tally was announced, the decision was unanimous. Humans would be admitted to the galactic community as the first recognized caretaker species. But there was one more decision to make, given their unique nature. Zex9 announced, we also recommend placing humanity under galactic protection status. They should be shielded from aggressive species until they develop adequate defenses. This vote was even more unanimous. The assembly began to disperse, but Zex9 remained behind, looking at the screen. It still showed Elena walking up the stairs to her apartment after saving Carlos. Such a simple moment, but it had changed everything. Kiratel approached him. Do you think humans will accept our contact when the time comes? Zex9 considered this carefully. I think, he said finally, they will probably ask how they can help us. 6 months later, first contact protocols began. Humanity was gently introduced to the reality of galactic civilization. As X9 had predicted, their first question was not about technology or territory. It was about how they could help other species that might be suffering. The galactic community had found its healers at last. Elena Vasquez never learned that her actions at 317 M had influenced the destiny of her entire species. She continued working as a trauma surgeon, continued saving lives one patient at a time. When aliens finally made contact with humanity, she was working a night shift at the hospital. Her first thought when she saw the news was simple. I wonder if they need medical assistance. Some things X9 realized never changed about humans. And perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy